GeekWire.com in Seattle. I'm Todd Bishop.
And I'm John Cook.
We're here with a special edition of the GeekWire podcast video version on a very big day for Microsoft, our local software giant.
Yeah, good thing we were both up at 4 in the morning.
No kidding, what was the deal?
I don't know. We just had a sixth sense, I guess.
Exactly. So Satya Nadella named Microsoft's new Chief Executive Officer, succeeding Steve Ballmer about 6 months after Steve Ballmer announced his plans to step down. Also big news, Bill Gates is planning to step down as chairman and become a technology advisor to Nadella, now spending about a third of his time working with Microsoft's product teams. Your take on the news, let's hear it, John.
Well, it was, most people thought this was coming over the last week or so.
It was not exactly a secret.
Yeah, and so it has started to leak out there. I think, as I've said before, I think Microsoft is an incredibly challenging company to run, and there actually isn't any one person out there that can run this business because it is so complex. They are in so many different types of sectors and businesses. So I think he's got his hands full, frankly.
He does, and I think that speaks to one of the reasons that Bill Gates is coming back in this larger role. It's hard to know how seriously to take the Gates news or to know exactly what's going on there. The way that Microsoft is positioning it, Gates just simply wouldn't have time to be both chairman and technology advisor to Nadella. He's got a lot of other things going on with the Gates Foundation and all sorts of global health initiatives, education. So that may be true, but at the same time, it seems like there was a push on the board for the independent directors to have more control over this company and this company's future. It'll be fascinating to see what Gates can do back in that role.
Yeah,
I
thought it would have a little bit more impact on the stock, that news, but
I think people don't know whether to take it seriously.
Yeah,
because
that's probably it.
The problem is that when Gates stepped down from day-to-day duties in 2008, he said he would spend 1 day a week at the company, and so that's 25. So he's basically going from 25 to 35, although maybe he didn't really mean it when he said it back then. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens like in a year.
Yeah. So what do you make of Nadella? You've interviewed him before. What type of person is he?
He's a quiet, assertive person. He is not the bombastic character that Steve Ballmer is. He's definitely.
Who is?
Yeah.
He's one of a kind.
It would be hard to measure up to that, but
That's
he's not. He's not even close. One
Yeah.
person that I spoke with described him as more in the vein of Gates than in the vein of Ballmer. Satya Nadella is 46 years old. Grew up in Hyderabad, India. Came to the United States, has worked with Microsoft for 22 years, so he is very much an insider. That said, some of his former colleagues, and in fact one of his friends, said Satya is very good at looking at a situation, deciding what needs to be done based on the data, and then making the tough decisions depending on what he thinks is the right call. So the shareholders who are worried about an insider coming in and basically just continuing the regime of Ballmer, I think there is some validity to that. That said, Nadella may surprise a few people down the road. I'd say maybe a year or two down the road with some more radical changes. Short term though, more status quo.
Yeah, I spoke to John Connors, the former CFO at Microsoft, this morning about this move. He says people in the Microsoft community are very much thrilled about this move. He called Nadella cerebral, in counterbalance to Ballmer's bombastic style, as you said, and said that, but he's willing to make tough decisions too. And some of the projects that Connors was telling me that Nadella was involved with, not everything has worked out that he's touched in the company. He's had some failures under his belt there. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. He's got some big, tough decisions to make. I was listening to CNBC this morning, and they had the Wall Street Journal editor on. I thought he made a really interesting point, and it gets back to what I was speaking about earlier with just the challenges in front of Nadella here in this new role. He said he challenged Nadella to put Microsoft's business mission into a one-sentence tweet. And he put this challenge out there, and I thought it was really interesting. It's like, that in a nutshell is the problem. How could you possibly describe that company in a tweet?
I think you probably saw it on Microsoft's Super Bowl ad this weekend, actually. I think you saw the emergence of a new slogan when Microsoft talked about empowering people. And it gets back to the original sort of mission statement, which I'm trying to remember. There was a while it was your people, our passion, it's all a blur for me now.
Yeah, I don't know. Not necessarily just like the tagline, but something like meaningful about what the business is.
Yeah. That would be tough. I don't know if I could do that.
I mean, you could probably, yeah, I don't, that's the challenge. I think with Amazon, you could probably do it.
I think we should do this as a post and challenge our readers to explain Microsoft's business in a tweet.
I think it's a great idea.
140 characters minus the, whatever you have to do for the hashtag.
Yeah. So this is also a pretty important day. Ballmer is no longer CEO. He's stepping away. He's still going to be on the board. What's your sense of the impact he's still going to have on the company as a board member or?
I think it's going to be somewhat minimal, actually,
Yeah.
as he steps down. I think that the fact that Gates is coming back in and playing more of that role to provide the common thread to the past, it means that Ballmer will essentially try and at least gradually step aside and let Nadella take over. And it'll be fascinating to see how that plays out. But I definitely got the sense, especially from the announcement this morning, that they're positioning that way. The primary quotes in the news release were from Gates and Nadella, and these things are very carefully crafted messages. They talk about the order of the quotes in the news release and who will be featured, and I think that signals to the wider world that Ballmer is not CEO anymore, and not even in spirit. It's time for him to move on, and I think that at least would make some shareholders happy, right?
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting. I mean, Nadella obviously coming out of the enterprise group, he's got some big time cloud computing chops. That's a business that I think Microsoft could really roll with and get some momentum. That's why I think people are excited about. When I spoke to Connors, the former CFO at Microsoft, he was saying that this is going to play out in Seattle. It's this idea of Seattle being kind of the cloud computing capital of the world, if you will, and he's predicting this massive battle between Amazon and Microsoft. We're going to be right in the thick of that, probably writing about this more and more, especially with the way these two companies are headed.
Yeah, on the flip side, the big question is how quickly Satya Nadella can get up to speed on the devices side of Microsoft's business. Mm-hmm. This big looming event that's coming up is the acquisition of Nokia's smartphone business. How would you like to step into a job and the first assignment that you have is to incorporate a $7.2 billion acquisition?
You're just adding 30,000 employees today. That's not a big deal.
That's going to be first on his plate. It's going to happen very soon.
I don't think we've actually spoken about this, but I had somebody speak to me over the weekend who noted that Nadella was in part in charge of driving the integration of the Aquantive acquisition.
That's true. He was in the online services division at that point, which was a $6 billion disaster.
Yeah, didn't work out well.
Hopefully he's learned the lessons of that
and this is
debacle.
This is going to be a bigger integration challenge and probably more core to where Microsoft's headed with the device strategy. So.
More core to where Microsoft is headed, but a complete departure from where it's been, and therefore possibly even more difficult than the Aquantive acquisition.
And then you add, Aquantive was based in Seattle. Right down the street, you've got Nokia in Finland. You've got, probably 5 times as many employees. It's just wow. That's a challenge. That's going to be a tough one.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got a lot more left to talk about. We've got a lot more. We'll be talking about this on our radio show on Kyber Radio this weekend, I'm sure.
Yep.
And we have a lot more coverage on GeekWire.com. Until next time, I'm Todd Bishop.
And I'm John Cook.
We'll talk to you next time.